All right, everybody, welcome to another edition, the Thursday edition of ETR's Established Runs NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer alongside Mike Gallagher. We've got 3 games on this Thursday slate kicking off at 7:30. Dallas at Atlanta, Milwaukee at Miami, and the nightcap, the Clippers at Golden State. Despite just 3 games, Mike, we have 20 players on the injury report today. So just another wild day in the NBA. Most of the injury report names are already ruled out. So in terms of things that we're waiting on, there's not quite as much. And I don't think there's much that really impacts the slate. So we'll spend more of our time kind of talking about how the current injuries have impacted our guesses at rotations that are going to be fluid and fragile. So Mike, how are you doing on this wonderful 3-game slate?
Doing great as I'm trying to produce at the same time here. Yeah, it's Chandru Mamukavishvili season, so that's super fun. We're gonna that's definitely the headline, man. But feeling it, getting over a cold, and working in the beginning of the NBA season has been pretty tricky. But let's get into this thing.
Let's kick it off. Let's start with Atlanta. This is the first time we'll see the Hawks this season as they played Dallas, starting off with the Trae Young versus Luka Doncic hype to start the season. Atlanta has already ruled out Onyeka Okongwu. He's going to be out for a while. Gallinari is technically listed as questionable on the injury report, but he's already basically been ruled out by the team that he's not going to play tonight. And then Lou Williams is questionable. He's been labeled a game time decision. We were talking before, Mike. I have questions whether even when he's healthy, Lou Williams is in this rotation. I'm not sure that he is, because of the guard depth that they have with the acquisition of DeLon Wright, with a healthy Herter and Bogdanovic and Reddish to all start the season. And so right now, I don't think Lou's going to play tonight because I think even if he was healthy enough, I'm not sure he's in the rotation like clearly. And so they might as well just take their time getting him healthy. We have him for a few minutes just in case, but I really don't think he cracks this rotation.
Yeah, I mean, I pulled up the depth charts here. They're too deep. Trae, DeLon, Bogdan, and Herter, and then Hunter, Cam. Like, they're going to probably play solo at the 4 to fill in a little bit for no Gallo.
Yeah.
So they're too deep everywhere. They don't need him at all. But we threw a couple minutes his way just in case, they want that spark plug off the bench, whatever. So, yeah, definitely don't be playing Lemon Pepper Lou. The Gallo stuff is tricky. I think I regret saying ding Gorgie Jang one. I kind of want to put that back.
We can. We have plenty of time to still make adjustments.
Yeah. So Jang should play pretty decent a bit because a lot of that Collins center stuff is with Gallo next to him. So
right.
That definitely affects their front court rotation a little bit. So we should see a little bit of him. And then we were debating Clint Capella. So he's just coming off this Achilles thing. It's lasted him months and months and months and months. And just played 12 minutes in his preseason only game. So I don't think he has that mid-30s upside. We put him at 29 with kind of a 32 high end. And I feel like that's the ultimate high end. So there should be plenty of front court minutes kind of to go around because Capella is definitely not hitting the high stuff.
Yeah, and the challenging thing about trying to evaluate preseason injuries and information and different things is obviously, I mean, even regular season information, as we saw last night. The Celtics talked about limiting Jaylen Brown. He played 46 minutes. Obviously, multiple overtime games influenced that, but we're still talking about 36 minutes in the regulation. So he wasn't limited unless they are planning on playing him, career records for the last 20 to 30 years of the NBA and go 40 plus minutes or whatever. But and similarly, Luke Walton talked about conditioning issues for Rashawn Holmes during the course of the preseason. All preseason, they played 3 centers in the first half of their games, even their dress rehearsals. And then Rashawn Holmes went and played 30 plus minutes, resumed his normal role basically last night. And so it's difficult to say. And that's why we've been kind of going back and forth on this. As Mike said, though, with Clint, there's a very clear injury. It's not a conditioning issue. It's an injury issue that he's recovering from. And this is a team with deep playoff run aspirations. This is a team that has a lot of depth on their side. So I think in general with the Hawks this year, when you have players that are going into the game with anything, and mind you, Capella is not listed on the injury report in any way, shape, or form. So his availability tonight is not in question. It's just what does that mean for his minutes? I think with the Hawks, you might want to err on the side of the lower side of things just this year because they're just such a deep team. And Gorgie Dieng can certainly fill that role. I mean, the idea that Gorgie Dieng is your third center, the idea that Lou Williams is like your fifth or sixth guard or whatever, like they are just a very, very, very deep team. As Mike alluded to, we expect Solomon Hill to pick up the Gallinari minutes. That's actually kind of good news for all the main Hawks guys, because one of the challenges that the Hawks have with their projections this year coming into the season is last year they had some really low usage guys eating up minutes when their main guys were injured during the course of the year. There's a lot of time that Bogdanovic sat. There was some time that Trey sat. And the guys who are filling some of these minutes, Solomon Hill, Tony Snell, these are really, really low usage players. And now if you look at this lineup, you're getting back Cam Reddish, much higher usage player than Solomon Hill. You're getting, back a healthy Bogdanovic. And so the usage was getting kind of squeezed on all the main players. I don't think Solomon Hill is going to play a ton of minutes tonight, but just having him out there for whatever minutes he is out there allows more usage dominance from the main guys.
Yeah, and Hunter definitely capable of playing some 4, especially when they do maybe spot some KP at the 5 minutes. Going over to Dallas, not a lot going on injury-wise, but I think we're kind of keeping an eye on how the center minutes shake out. We know Porzingis is playing a lot more of the 4, and it looked like Willie Cauley-Stein in the dress rehearsal was ahead of Moses Brown. So we don't have any Moses Brown minutes with Cauley-Stein filling in. But I think Dwight Powell should handle most of that Capella minutes, and then maybe mixing and matching some Porzingis along with Maxi Kleber playing next to him.
Yeah, and this is an interesting situation because remember, as the sirens hone in on me here in New York City, remember that Dallas has a new coaching staff this year. And so all of our assumptions about how Dallas will play and different things is very different this year with Jason Kidd at the helm instead of Rick Carlisle. He's talked more about playing Porzingis on the block. There's been a lot of different talks about how they're going to run their offense. They had a very successful preseason. It'll be interesting to see if it carries over into the regular season. But for those reasons, these multiple center rotations that we saw out of Carlisle last year when they were playing 3 or 4 centers per night, I don't know if that's going to be the case with Jason Kidd. And if it's not, there is more opportunity for those minutes to consolidate on one guy. Now, I don't think Dwight Powell has enough of a ceiling, especially in this matchup, to really warrant taking the chance on it outside of a deep MME set. But there is a chance here that things consolidate a little bit more. Also, Rick Carlisle loved Maxi Kleber. I don't know how Jason Kidd feels about Maxi Kleber. And so we've got Kleber's minutes kind of projected down a little bit this year, just trying to figure out how much Porzingis at the 5 are they really going to play. Yep.
I think you pretty much said it all. Let's get to the fun part. As we I'm going to pull up the injury report here. I mean, look at this. No Dante DiVincenzo, no probable Jrue Holiday. Shout out to Brian for he is probable to win the GPP today. Good one. No Rodney Hood, no Brook Lopez for a back injury, no Shemi Ojale, no free Bobby Portis is not free. They have no front court depth. This is after the first game. We're like, oh, they have no front court depth. They just have Brook Lopez, and now they don't have Brook Lopez. So so someone had asked, who am I trying to pronounce? Sandro Mamu Kabashvili. 5 syllables in that one, but he's gonna play. After thinking about it, I think he's way less likely to start because you don't want to start him against Bam.
Yeah.
So I think I'd rather fill him in against Dedmon and those guys. So you'd rather have a much more versatile player in covering guys. So what do you make of this? If you want to shed some light on what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so we were trying to figure out what the starting lineup looks like, and we think it's going to be George Hill, Grayson Allen, Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then this is where it gets tricky in terms of who that extra option is. In terms of who their best players are, that would be probably Pat Connaughton or maybe Jordan Nwora. But with both of those guys, you want to separate some of your scoring into the bench unit, just so you can more appropriately stagger different things. And so as a result, I think it's going to be a spot where they are going to lean on a lower usage player to kind of just be able to further stagger. And we think it's going to be Thanasis and Antetokounmpo. We could be wrong on this, certainly, and our minutes will adjust as we get information on the starting lineups here. But I think it's going to be a lower usage player, have Connaughton and Nwora in the second unit to keep some semblance of continuity, because otherwise there would be almost no semblance of continuity with guys who have not played together at all. And I think that's the thing that they want to avoid. You kind of, as a coach, if you have 4 guys who have played together and you can put one guy out there who doesn't play with them a lot, you can kind of work things through. But if you have in your second unit 5 guys or 4 guys who haven't played together at all, things can get really messy and really sloppy. So we think Thanasis starts. I think from a DFS perspective, Jordan Nwora is going to be the guy that gets all the attention. He was on a pace in the second half without Jrue Holiday of playing he played a 13, 14-minute second half. Now, he did get 3 minutes of blowout time that I don't know if he would have gotten, I don't know if he would have closed in normal situation or not. So it could have been more like 20-minute pace, but we've got him up at 26 minutes now without Brook Lopez. He's near the min price, on the sites, and he's a guy that will willingly take shots and fill it up. So I think he's going to be the chalk monster on the slate, the clear salary relief play that everybody's going to get to. Because he is so scoring dependent, he can have a weaker floor to him if the shot is not falling. So in terms of, how to approach it on a 3-game slate, we'll talk more about that behind the paywall on the Established Run NBA show tonight with myself and Gary Hartman at 5:30 Eastern for subscribers out there. But I do think Nwora is going to fill in the bulk of the minutes. I think George Hill is going to start, play mid upper 20s minutes. Maybe in a pinch he can get George Hill into the 30s. But I think Connaughton will come off the bench and play more minutes than George Hill would be my guess. And I think Grayson Allen will get into the 30s as well. And then I think the main guys, if you ever have concerns about Milwaukee's main guys not playing enough, I don't think it's going to be tonight because I just don't think they have enough bodies.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. So the sub pattern, we should add that George Hill had a little foul trouble in the first game, so that dinged him a little bit. But the first sub pattern was Connaughton coming in and then going small that way. But they can't do that. Now they're going to need Connaughton kind of as a 4-man to go that route. So it's tough. And a lot of the Grayson Allen at the 1, I think all but 3 minutes had a true big man. So I don't think Budenholzer may want to kind of go that route, but he kind of has to. So we may see a little bit of Justin Robinson just because they have to fill minutes along with Sandro there. But yeah, I think Nwora is going to see a ton of playing time. I think Grayson Allen's in a really good spot here as well.
Yeah, and Sandro's min price.
Going to play a ton.
Sandro's min price. Thanasis is really cheap as well. Those guys have a big projection gap between them and Nwora. So from a game theory perspective, it gets tough, even though ownership projections will be heavily favoring Nwora. But I think in general, Milwaukee cheap guys are going to be the chalk tonight. They don't have a lot of ways to play. That's really the message we want to get out of here with, in terms of, you can only carry 15 guys on a roster. They've got 6 or 7 guys on the injury report, right? So they I think it's 6. So they basically have, with 2 ways and whatnot, they have a 10-man rotation. They can't play much more than that.
Yep, it's pretty ugly. Anything you want to add on Miami? Just Oladipo's on the injury.
Miami Oladipo's out. Nothing there on Miami that I think is too concerning from a rotations perspective and trying to figure out what Miami is going to do. I think one of the things with them is just in terms of how much Tyler Hero we see this year as kind of the lead guard off the bench and how deep they get into rotations. But I think Miami's pretty solid. The question mark for me is just does Gabe Vincent get into the rotation as a 10th guy or not? Are they playing 9 straight? And I think they're more likely to play 9 straight.
Yep, I think so too. And we saw in the dress rehearsal, Hero was clearly the point guard 2 on top of his basically shooting guard 2-minute role, subbed in behind Duncan. So Hero's minutes should be really, really safe. Going to the last game of the night, we've got you wouldn't think Nick Batum being out would be a big deal, but it affects the Clippers here. Let's pull up their depth chart, just because they're out with missing Kawhi. Marcus Morris will be able to go, but he's been a little limited with a knee thing. Keep an eye on that. But yeah, no Batum could shake things out. Justice Winslow has been kind of the PG1, but Lewis said he'll use him anywhere in center. And we saw Winslow play double-digit minutes with Reggie Jackson and with Eric Bledsoe. Lewis said he is going to stagger Reggie Jackson with Eric Bledsoe and keep one of them on the floor at the same time. And then also Terrence Mann has been subbing in for Paul George and then kind of overlapping later as the game would go on.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting situation because the front court depth here is really challenged as well, and it's against a Golden State team that we know likes to play small. They like to get into those lineups where Dre's at the center or Bielitsa's at the center, and these kind of smaller lineups on the whole. So could this game just end up playing super small? And if it does, if they play lineup combinations that push Zubats off the floor, with Marcus Morris having injury issues throughout camp that kind of limited his playing time, and I don't know how high the minute ceiling could be on Marcus Morris, you could get into a situation where basically like Marcus Morris is forced to play most of his minutes at center. And then there's a whole bunch of minutes open up because now you don't have Morris at the 4 or Batum at the 4. And so you get into, Paul George playing the 4, like, everybody shifting up and getting more minutes for Luke Kennard, getting more minutes for Terrence Mann or Justice Winslow. And a lot of the Clippers wings that they have are big enough, certainly, to go against the Warriors wings in these like super, super small lineups. So I think this is one of the things that is really interesting to try to project in this slate. We've got Amir Coffey in the rotation. He was signed at the end of camp to a 2-way deal, but has a lot of familiarity with the Clippers, obviously. So we've got him in the rotation. We've got Hartenstein in the rotation for a few minutes. We've got Winslow in the rotation for 17 to 18 minutes. There's a lot of opportunity here, and I think all of the ownership in DFS tonight is going to condense on the Milwaukee side of things. So I think Clippers value is going to be pretty interesting for tournaments. But I think their rotation is very fragile to project just because they could go a lot of different ways here. If they decide like we just need more scoring on the floor and we need to stay big with Zubats because we need more ways to get offense through offensive rebounding and different things, then the whole rotation could be very different than what we're projecting.
And to add to that, Batum was kind of like, he's not really a center, but he was used covering Rudy Gobert in that series, and they kind of use him that way defensively. So, definitely a lot of things could shake out there. Golden State, pretty much nothing new. Just want to mention that Jordan Poole dinged up his ankle a couple times. We saw him go to the locker room briefly. We kind of factored that in. He lost that last rotation in the second quarter, so that cut him down a little bit. And then obviously they might be Bielitsa with some injuries to the front court with James Weissman, no Kuminga as well, and obviously no Clay. But anything you're looking at here, certainly the Poole thing is going to have everyone's attention.
Yeah, the thing I'll just note here is I really think there's not that many guys in Golden State's rotation that exactly what you're getting from each and every night. Because I think the back end of the roster and the rotation, they're going to play a lot of matchups and a lot of hot hand stuff with. So going off of a small sample in game one is all we have to go off of for minutes projections. But if, for instance, like Kevon Looney only played like 12 minutes tonight and they played JTA, Juan Toscano Anderson, and Bielitsa the same amount and Juan Toscano Anderson more, that wouldn't surprise me if this game ended up being super, super small. Also wouldn't surprise me if, some nights Moses Moody gets into the rotation and plays like 10 to 12 minutes if he like goes out there and shoots the ball well. We saw Otto Porter not play very much at all in the first game. And I think that is largely to do with he did not look good. He looked pretty stiff out there and wasn't moving as well as he did in the preseason. If he wakes up and is feeling good and he's moving great around there, I could see him playing the 22 minutes that Iguodala played. I think there's going to be a lot of fragility with the back end of the Warriors roster in rotation because I think it's going to be very hot handy. I think the only guys that are really like each and every night you can count on what their minutes are is going to be Curry, Wiggins, who's got a minutes cap that they're working, they're going to work his way up on, and Draymond. I think everybody else is going to have a wider range of minutes. I think Poole's minutes will be pretty safe on the low end, but I think his high end range is going to be very volatile just because I think it's going to be hot handy again with guys like Damian Lee and Otto Porter and so on.
Yeah, Wiggins was at just 26 minutes in the last game, so that's supposed to be a 2-week ramp up. So yeah probably
like a minute or two higher each night is my guess. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, you do the math on it, right? You're talking about 2 weeks. What's that? 8 games. You want to get in the mid-30s, so you're talking a minute and a half time. So it's kind of where we're at. And just to be clear, like this is an injury show, and not everything you're gonna. I mean, we're learning more than ever that the injury report isn't as valuable as you think it is. So we're gonna anything injury related, we're gonna try to talk about it. We hope to give you guys some edge there. Not so much this time. I guarantee you there will be other times. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's really it. For those of you who are checking us out for the first time, we will be here every Monday through Friday at 2:00 Eastern, covering the injury report, breaking down. We haven't had kind of the big like if thens if these guys
Mm-hmm.
move around. We had Rozier yesterday that we talked about a little bit in terms of how that would move LaMelo quite a bit. But we'll get more of those kind of if thens as the season comes along with these questionables. We just haven't run into them early in the season, and hopefully that will give you guys insight into how we're building out our secondary and tertiary projections to be able to move quickly around lock. If you are not a subscriber to any of our in-season content, that's where Mike Gallagher and Mike's matchups column, our live shows before lock, 2 hours before lock, we go on for an hour. Tonight it's me and Gary Hartman, but the last 2 nights it's been me and Mike. All of our projections, all of our analysis. We've also got props packages. If you're interested in betting props, we have gone 9-5 through the first 2 nights of the season, so off to a good start there. But yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you get all the notifications. So we'll be here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern all the time. And then, if you want to join us for the in-season ride on the DFS side of things, we'll got everything you need in terms of projections and analysis and content to play each and every night.
Yep. 7 interesting things tomorrow. Do you know what those are? Back-to-back starting.
That's right.
We'll be talking more about that. They've got 7 teams on the front end tomorrow. So, yeah, and then 3 balls free. You guys definitely, if you play season long, check that out. So we're out of here. Definitely come back and check out the show with Gary and Dink. Catch you guys later.